The year is 2007, and you better lock your doors because Paris Hilton just got out of jail. This was also the year when Spider-Man 3 danced to the top of the box office charts. Aqua Teen Hunger Force triggered a real-life bomb scare, and Soulja Boy Tell'em told us about a brand new dance that everybody promptly forgot. But we're not here to watch me crank it, watch me roll, watch me Superman that hoe, because today we're going to be counting down Electronic Gaming Monthly's worst reviewed games of 2007. Now, watch me you. When we unveiled Electronic Gaming Monthly's list of the worst reviewed games of 2006, a lot of people had the same question. Where the hell is Sonic the Hedgehog? This is, after all, a game that many people consider to be one of the worst reboots of all time. So you would think that it would at least make an appearance on the worst reviewed list. And you know what? You'd be right, because Sonic 06 deserved to be on that list. But there's just one small problem. Yeah, EGM didn't review the game until their January 2007 issue. As a result, both the Next Generation reboot and the PSP spin-off Sonic Rivals are showing up in the wrong year, but don't take that to mean that they don't suck. In the case of Sonic 2006, Milkman noted that with each new Sonic game it releases, Sega moves closer to assassinating the very character that once distinguished the company. Ironically, despite trying to expose Sonic to a broader audience, Sonic Team has now managed to render the next-gen game almost completely unplayable. Since when does breakneck speed combined with a completely unhinged camera equal playability? It doesn't! Believe it or not, this Sonic reboot is so bad that it made Jared yearn for even the Hedgehog's more middling chapters. I could have dealt with the much-lauded adventure elements, subpar graphics, even that clown shadow. But the bottom line is that this feels more like some hack job created by a bunch of Sega interns as opposed to a game from a competent development studio. With an average of 4 out of 10, Sonic's 15th birthday bash has turned out to be more of a bust. Released only 2 days after the Xbox 360 abomination, Sonic Rivals is one of the handheld spin-offs that time has forgotten. It's a weird mashup of both a side-scrolling platformer and a racing game, which I gotta admit sounds like a promising concept on paper. Unfortunately, developer Backbone couldn't seem to figure out how to make these two genres work together. James explains, "I don't want to brag, but I'm awesome at Rivals. All you have to do is memorize each stage, hold down the right button, and jump every once in a while. If you too want to be this good and offer me a challenge, then all you need is one distinct quality: a gluttony for punishment." Ooh, it may have been overshadowed by the sweeping awfulness that is Sonic 2006, but with an average of 4 out of 10, Sonic Rivals is every bit as bad. You know, it's probably too much to blame Mario Party for all the world's ills, but there was a time in the mid-2000s when it definitely felt like Nintendo was to blame. That had to be how the EGM editors felt every single time they had to play through a Fuzion Frenzy game. In case you missed out on the short-lived franchise, this was a minigame collection that started on the Xbox and then ended on the Xbox 360. Or, as Jennifer put it, the bland party game collection that graced the original Xbox's launch was completely forgettable at best. A few years from now, I suspect we're going to be saying the same thing about this sequel, with its passable mini-games, boring tournament structure, and generic characters. She was angry. He's mad at all the people who bought enough copies of the original Fuzion Frenzy to warrant a sequel. I hope you're all happy, because you're getting more of the same. Lifeless, generic, and sluggish mini-games devoid of any fun and personality. Surprisingly, he's even more dumbfounded by his fellow critics. A 5? 4.5? My fellow reviewers are too generous. It's true, compared to his rock bottom 2, these scores are indeed too high. When we take them all together, we find that the second and last Fuzion Frenzy game averaged a pathetic 3.8 out of 10. exactly 1/10 of a point higher than the 2001 original. That's progress, I suppose. If you've been following our descent through Electronic Gaming Monthly's worst reviewed games, then you might remember me complaining about Konami's output in the mid-2000s. For every amazing Metal Gear Solid sequel we got, we would get an atrocious Bomberman game to balance out the scale. 2007 wasn't any different, as we were blessed with 2 amazing Castlevania games, only to then be cursed with 2 horrendous flying games. The first is Wing Island on the Wii, a family-friendly affair that is about as close as you're gonna get to Pilot Wings on the Wii. It sounds like a winning formula, right? What could possibly go wrong? Crispin puts it this way. Wing Island packs all the frills of massively subsonic, more like walking speed flight, coupled with aerial searches for wayward livestock and villagers begging for propaganda leaflet bombardments. Wing Island's missions are often as boring as they are bizarre. Dumping water on fires? Kinda fun. Hauling crates to hard-to-hit drop zones? Great. Bombing immobile derelict ships? Somebody wake me up when we land. Jen has more pressing questions, like, why does a bird need to fly a plane, and why am I still playing this? Dreamcast-era graphics further sour the deal. In the end, Wing Island is one lame duck. Hey, I think a lot of those Dreamcast games still look pretty good. Editorializing aside, Wing Island crashed and burned with an average score of 3.7 out of 10. 2007 was not a good year for flying games published by Konami. As bad as Wing Island was, Time Ace is apparently that much worse. Released on the Nintendo DS and nowhere else, Time Ace tosses you into the cockpit of a bunch of dogfights throughout time. That sounds like a killer premise to me, but the review crew tells a completely different story. For example, Crispin begs somebody, anybody, to invent a real time machine. That way he can go back in time and warn himself not to play this dog-tired dog fighting through the decades air combat crapshoot. Chief among Time Ace's tripping points, an auto-engaging autopilot with an knack for tossing you into buildings if you wander too far from the preset flight path. Add in spotty hit detection, and you end up dying more from crashing into obstacles than from taking enemy fire. Speaking of warnings, Demian wanted to give multiplayer gamers a heads up. I'd also like to add, for the benefit of the 2 people who might want to try the multiplayer mode, please reconsider. You each need to own your own copy of the game for starters. And then you'll find that clumsy, oh look, we died simultaneously again death matches and 1 of 3 maps aren't much fun. I mean, what flight game doesn't let you do a loop-the-loop anyway? You know, that's a solid question, and one that we're definitely not going to find the answer for in any of these 3 reviews. With an average score of 3.5 out of 10, Konami has done it again. And by it, I mean that they've released another terrible game that takes up space on a list of the worst reviewed games. Way to stay consistent, Konami. Now that Resident Evil has largely moved away from its campy origins, it's up to Escape from Bug Island to be the video game equivalent of a cheesy B-movie. But while something like Birdemic may be so bad that it's actually good, this knowingly awful game is just, well, awful. It's the kind of game that is unbearably bad for all the wrong reasons. Greg Ford runs down the checklist of all the things that it gets wrong, complaining that the antiquated tank controls often make the simple act of moving a chore, and the sluggish attack motions mean deadly critters will be all over you as you flail in the wrong way. And just when you think it's all over, the big twist sends you backtracking through the miserable experience. Mark, who gave the game a 1.5 out of 10, spent most of his review playfully chastising Greg for playing it wrong. Complaining about the horrendous controls and frustrating combat? It's called Escape from Bug Island, Greg. Escape, not fight. The game never gives you a reason to attack monsters, so I think you're supposed to just run from everything instead. Fun! Coated in a heavy layer of sarcasm, all three editors agree that Escape from Bug Island has ugly graphics, crummy gameplay, and a story you're better off running away from. With an average score of 2.7 out of 10, Escape from Bug Island is officially Electronic Gaming Monthly's worst reviewed game of 2007. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of EGM's Best and Worst. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we're going to be posting 2 more episodes before we ring in the new year. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your least favorite game of 2007? By the way, if you want to say Sonic, and I know you do, you can just go right on ahead. The PlayStation 3 version actually came out in 2007, so it counts. No matter what, let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back next week with the final 2 episodes of EGM's Best and Worst series. That's right, we're going to be looking at not only 2008, but also the one issue they published in 2009. We'll also be figuring out how to deal with them going from number scores to letters about halfway through the year. Ooh, you're definitely going to want to see how that factors into the list when you tune in next week. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,